بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضاه. Today we continue with our series on the basics of Arabic reading and writing. In this series, so far we have completed phase 1, where we studied the individual letter forms. We learned how to write each letter in the Arabic alphabet as well as their correct pronunciation. And by the end of phase 1, it's expected that everyone is able to identify each of the 29 letters in the Arabic alphabet and to also be able to pronounce them correctly. So after phase 1, we moved on to phase 2, where we learned to join these letters together. We learned the different forms of these letters, how they appear when they are at the beginning, the middle, and at the end of words. So all that remains now is to practice and implement what we've taken. And this is what we are going to be doing throughout the remaining lessons in this series, inshallah. But in today's class, I wanted to give a short overview of the main calligraphy styles. And the main reason for this is just as a benefit and a conclusion to phase 2. So this is the last lesson, inshallah, in phase 2. After this, we're going to move on to phase 3. Okay, so we should know that there are 6 main calligraphy styles: Naskh, Ruq'ah, Thuluth, Farisi, Diwani, and Kufi. And this is the book that I've been using throughout the writing lessons, where I've been picking up some benefits. And this book is written by Mahdi As-Sayyid Mahmoud. طيب. So these are the 6 main calligraphy styles, and I want to inshallah show you, take you through this book. The author, he begins with a muqaddimah, which is an introduction where he mentions briefly what the book is about. And then he speaks about preparing the pen, how the pen is prepared in terms of the calligraphy, how it's cut, the degree and angle at which it's cut, because you use a special pen when writing calligraphy. This is how you begin anyway, so that you can see how the angles of the curves are. But you can also use a normal pen, as he mentioned. So we have al-qalam as-samik, the angle pen, which varies in thickness. And also from the pens that can be used is the al-qalam al-adi, which is a normal pen. So after speaking about that, then he mentions some advices for a person to become a good calligrapher. From the things that he mentions is wujud al-mawhiba, that a person, he should be talented. To be a good calligrapher, you need to have some sort of skill with you, and this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Although a person can train, a person can train his skills and reach a good standard. So that's the first one. Then diqqa wa quwwatul mulahadha, a person should be one who is able to take things in and be able to copy and imitate what he sees. So if you see the way something is written, you're able to analyze and take that in and copy in exactly the same way. طيب, that's the second advice. Then he mentions al-qalam al-jayyid, having a good pen, al-hibr al-jayyid, good ink, al-waraq al-jayyid, good paper. All of these 3 things, they affect the results of your writing. كثرة القراءة والاطلاع على كتب الخط العربي. Also reading much and looking at the books of khat. There's books which have been written in khat, like this one and other than this one. If a person, he goes over them frequently, then obviously he's going to pick up every time he goes over them, and the more he goes over them, the more he picks up. And finally he mentions or not finally, but he mentions wujud al-muallim, wujud muallim, having a teacher also is from the things which helps a person in perfecting his writing. Also أن يكون المتعلم مع مجموعة من الزملاء كلما أمكن ذلك. That a person he studies alongside some of his colleagues, or he has students he studies in a group, that also helps. And التأني في الكتابة والصبر وعدم اليأس وتكرار المحاولات. That a person he reflects and focuses and is determined and patient in the course of his studies, and repeats his attempts. He doesn't just try and then when he fails he gives up, but he tries until he reaches perfection. So these are the main advices he gives. And then the author, he begins speaking about the 6 calligraphy styles. He begins with al-ruqa. And when he begins each chapter, he gives a brief overview of, or introduction to, the calligraphy style. Then he mentions, or he gives a sample of how the writing style looks like. So this is how al-ruqa looks like. It looks like this. And al-ruqa, this is a writing style which is used in common day writing and not taken. So this is from these 6, one of the most important for a student of knowledge and a person learning the Arabic language, because this is the quickest writing style for you to take notes. Because it's so efficient, you hardly lift your hand off the paper. A lot of the things you can write without lifting. The more you lift and put your hand back to write, the more time you lose. So you want to minimize that. So the more you minimize that, the quicker you write and the quicker you are able to take notes. So this is why this writing style is very efficient. This and al-nasakh, the one that we're learning. So this is khat al-ruqa. This is something which a student of knowledge should learn after khat al-nasakh. But it doesn't matter which order you do it in. But usually this is the second that a person he learns. And if you don't know, or if you haven't learned this, it can be very difficult to read. In fact, this whole book is written using this font. This whole book is written using this font. So it's going to be quite difficult for a person who doesn't know how to read this or hasn't studied this, for him to be able to read some of these words. The whole book is written using this khat. This is the most common style that's used for writing notes, everyday notes. So what the author does, he mentions at the beginning, after the introduction and giving you a sample, he mentions some of the principles, the main principles related to the writing style. After that, he goes on to mention how these letters look like, mufrada, how the letters appear when they are written individually. This is how the letters appear when they're written individually. After that, he goes on to mention how it appears when it's at the beginning, fil bidaya. So he will go fil bidaya, and then he will speak about these letters, ba, tha, or ba, ta, and tha, how they appear at the beginning, how they appear in the middle, how they appear in the end. And he will do this with the rest of the letters. He will continue doing this with the rest of the letters until he comes to the end of the chapter. And he will mention, obviously, the different options you might have. He will mention different options that a person has with the different letters. So this is all khat al-ruqa. So he's come to the end now, and he speaks about lafz al-jalala bi khat al-ruqa, how you write Allah's name in this style or this writing style. You have this option or this option. Then he moves on to the second writing style in this book, which is khat al-nasakh. Khat al-nasakh is the writing style that we've been studying. This is the writing style that we've been studying, and this is the writing style that all beginners in the Arabic language, they study at first, even though not everyone knows that it's called khat al-nasakh. But this is the one that most beginners, or all, are familiar with at the beginning of their journey learning the Arabic language. And the reason for this is because this writing style is the most clear to read from all of the 6 calligraphy styles. This is the most clear. Hence, this is the writing style which is used in the Quran. The writing style used in the Quran is khat al-nasakh because it's very clear. And also this is the writing style which is used in most books and literature, and which you find in most everyday Arabic writing. This is the most common because of its clarity, and also because this writing style accepts tashkil. Tashkil as in fatha, kasra, dhamma, the vowelization and the diacritical markings. This is a style which accepts that, because not all of these writing styles accept that. Like khat al-ruqa, if you look, it doesn't have any tashkil. It's a style which does not accept tashkil. This is why it's so quick. You don't do tashkil, you just carry on writing until the end. And the same for khat al-nasr. You don't have to put tashkil, but it accepts tashkil. Whereas khat al-ruqa doesn't accept tashkil. This is also something which gives it more clarity. The fact that you can put vowels on it makes it easier for a person to read and understand. So, as we mentioned, this book is written in khat al-ruqa. Everything is khat al-ruqa except the parts where he's going to explain. So this khat al-nasakh, he gives an introduction to it, then he gives a sample. This is how khat al-nasakh looks like. The sample that he's given is here. This is how it looks like. This is an ayah from the Quran. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. All of the Quran is written in this font, or in this Arabic calligraphy style. Then he goes on to give the main or general principles of this writing style. And after that, he begins by mentioning the individual letters. So, al-huruf al-mufrada. This is what we took in phase 1. These are the letters that we took in phase 1. al-huruf al-mufrada. As you can see, ra, you have 2 forms, ra and za. You can either write like this or you can write like this. All the things that we mentioned previously. And this is the book that I was benefiting from in preparing those lessons for phase 1. So then after that, he mentions how the letters look like when they're at the beginning, fil bidaya, fil wasat, or fil nihaya, how they look like and the options that you have. And he does this throughout the course of this book with all of the different writing styles. So this is how the calligraphy books look like. This is how they look like. So remember, we mentioned Saad, you can join like this, or you can join straight, or you can join different ways, like this. Also, from the things regarding khat al-nasakh is that some letters you can stretch. You can stretch some letters and you can write them in the original form where it's not stretched. And the reason why you can stretch some letters, they mention, is that to fill in a void. You might be left with a big space. And you'll find this in the Quran a lot, where towards the end of the page, or the end of the line, there's a big space. So to fill in that space, the letter is elongated. The letter is elongated to fill in that space. Now, so he continues until he gets to the end of the chapter. And quickly flick through, so you can see he's going through all the letters individually, and then he finishes here. Lafz al-jalala bi khat al-nasakh. This is how Allah's name is written according to the calligraphy style of nasakh. So far we've covered two writing styles, khat al-ruqa and khat al-nasakh. These are the two main ones from these 6 that a student knowledge needs. You need khat al-nasakh because this is how the letters appear in the qa'idah, and this is how the letters appear in the Quran, and this is how the letters are written in main or most of the Arabic books and literature. So familiarizing oneself with this writing style is important, In fact, this is what you're going to be familiar with anyways when you first begin learning the Arabic language. Naam. But it's important for you to familiarize yourself with this, yani also because as a teacher, when you become a teacher, inshallah, which is the intention of, which should be the intention of all students of knowledge, is to remove jahl from one's own self. Yeah, to remove ignorance from your own self, and in future, inshallah, to remove ignorance from others around you, beginning with your family and so on. This should be our intention. So when you're teaching others, you can't be writing khat al-ruqa. You can't be writing on the board with khat al-ruqa, because not everyone's going to understand. It's going to be difficult for them to read, which is why you need to have khat al-nasakh. Yeah, you should be writing on the board using khat al-nasakh for the beginners, so that it's easy for them to be able to read and understand. But obviously for yourself, you'll be writing with khat al-ruqa, because this is the most efficient way of taking notes. You save time and it's quick. طيب. So after khat al-nasakh, you've studied khat al-nasakh, you should learn khat al-ruqa for your own benefit in terms of taking notes and so on. طيب, what I mean by efficiency, I'll give an example now when I say efficiency. Okay, so for example, this is Bismillah. I'm going to write Bismillah according to khat al-nasakh. According to khat al-nasakh, Bismillah is written like this. Okay, Bismillah with the dot there. In khat al-ruqa, Bismillah is written like this. Look how efficient it is. You see this? I went down, then I have to go up, down, up, down, up, down. Look at that and compare that to this. This is ba, this is sin, this is mim. That's Bismillah. You see how efficient that is? This long line represents sin, and it can also represent sheen. Allah's name, the ha, you could go up like that normally, or you could do this to make it quicker. Another example of how efficient it is with the dots. Ta, usually we would do this, and we'll do two dots like that. In khat al-nasakh or khat al-ruqa, the dots for ta is just like that. This is two dots. This is why there's no tashkil, because this looks like a fatha. So if we were to put a fatha on top of this, it would be confusing. Tha, instead of doing three dots like that, we do this. Yeah, we do this. Sheen, you could write like this, or you could do the three dots. But the point is, the dots is like this, like that. Noon, we do this usually, but you could do this. So look, here we lift our hands off to do the dot. This, every time you lift your hand off the paper, you lose time. This is what we're talking about efficiency. With noon, look, one stroke. I didn't lift my hands off the pen. Save time. If you're doing that over a page, obviously you're going to be saving a lot of time. So this is what we mean by efficiency of khat al-ruqa. طيب, the next khat is khat al-thuluth. Khat al-thuluth. This khat is used in the Quran also for the chapter headings and the surah names. Let me get my mushaf, I'll show you now quick. Okay, Suratul Safat, for example, here, this is khat al-thuluth. So the surah names and the surah headings, the chapter headings as well. Here, Al-Juz al-Thalith wal-Ashrun, Surah Yasin, and so on. The headings that are on the top and the surah names, these are written in khat al-thuluth. طيب, khat al-thuluth. It's good for us to just be aware of the different writing styles, so that we're not confused. We might see a different khat and say, oh, our teacher didn't teach us this, he's been teaching us wrong things. No, he's been teaching you a different writing style. طيب, so this is a different writing style that you're looking at. Khat al-thuluth. So he mentions the introduction to khat al-thuluth, its main features and so on. and then he gives an example. طيب خط الثلث. And then he continues with the principles, individual letters, and how it looks when it's joined and so on. So that's the third calligraphy style. I'm just going to flick through and get to the end so I can show you the next one. So that's خط الثلث. Then we have خط الفارسي. Now خط الفارسي, this is widely used in Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan, areas where they speak Persian, Farisi, and Urdu also. They use the same font. Introduction, and this is how it looks like. This is how it looks like. So the brothers and sisters who are from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, and these regions, those who speak Urdu and so on, they're probably familiar with this. You find this writing very common in that language, and this is how it's written. So this is ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير. This is a sample of how it looks like. And as is the norm with the author, he goes through the letters individually and how it looks like when it's joined. He mentions the principles along the way. So this is خط الفارسي. طيب خط الفارسي. Trying to flick through so I can get to the next one. طيب, the next خط, which is the fourth, or it is the fifth one. This is the fifth one, is خط الديواني. خط الديواني. And this calligraphy style was used previously in official writings. It used to be used in official writings, and it is also known as الخط الملكي. الخط الملكي, and that is because it was used by the royals, the kings and the princes and so on, because it's such a beautiful writing style, as you can see here. This is how it looks like. This and الثلث are very beautiful. They look very beautiful. All of these are samples of خط الديواني. خط الديواني. This says وفوق كل ذي علم عليم, which is ayah in Surah Yusuf. طيب, this is خط الديواني. Very beautiful. اللهم بارك. Okay, the final one. Trying to flick through to get to the final one is خط الكوفي. خط الكوفي is one of the first calligraphy styles that were ever established, and this is how the Quran used to be written initially, like this. This is how it used to be written. This is خط الكوفي, and خط الكوفي has various forms. It comes in various forms. It comes like this form, but this is the main one that the Quran was written in. You find in manuscripts, a lot of the manuscripts, you find this kind of font in the manuscripts. خط الكوفي, this version particularly. Although خط الكوفي has different variations. All of this are خط الكوفي. These are all variants of خط الكوفي, the calligraphy style known as al-Kufi. These are all variants. Okay, so he goes through the chapter in similar fashion, speaking about how the letters are written in the beginning, middle, end, individually, and so on. But the point of today's lesson was to give you a brief overview of الخطوط العربية, the Arabic calligraphy styles. So we have 6: نسخ, رقعة, ثلث, فارسي, ديواني, كوفي. These two are the main ones. نسخ, the one that we've been studying, and the one we're going to continue to study inshallah until the end of this series. نسخ. This is the most plain and clearest of all of these. رقعة is something that we should be aiming to study as students of knowledge, because it's the most efficient style in note taking. You save a lot of time and you save a lot of effort because you move your pen off the paper very few times in comparison to the rest. And the other ones, it's good to be familiar with them. At least thuluth, you know that the surah names are written in thuluth in the Quran, and the juz, the section headings and the chapters in the Quran are written according to thuluth. Farisi, our brothers in Asia, Persia, they're familiar with that. Diwani and Kufi, we spoke about these. So this is a conclusion of phase 2, inshallah, bidhnillah al-kareem. On Friday, inshallah, we're going to start phase 3, where we are going to begin learning the tashkil, beginning with fatha, the vowelization. We're going to start with fatha, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.